Hello and welcome to this week's Talking Bottom, the Bottom podcast where three Bottom fans get together each week and spend the best part of an hour talking about an episode that only lasted 30 minutes. My name's Paul.
I'm Matt Brooks.
I'm Angela Johnson.
And this week it's Burglary. That's the episode where a couple of burglars come and try and rob the place. I'm going to start off this week with the actual synopsis taken off Wikipedia. Usually these things are far too long, but I'm going to read Wikipedia's synopsis.
All right, this is a break from format. I'm not sure how our listeners are going to respond.
Yeah. Okay, this is what Wikipedia has. Richie and Eddie catch a burglar in their living room.
Yeah.
That's
it's
it.
very
Right.
concise.
What's the iTunes one?
iTunes one is only like a sentence longer. Richie and Eddie have a break-in at home and manage to take the hapless culprit prisoner. What will they do with him and the loot he has stolen from other houses? There you go. That's the storyline.
Now, if I had a gun to my head and had to pick the worst episode in Series 2, I would say this one, but it's a fucking brilliant episode. If anything, that's a strength of Series 2. That's how good Series 2 is. I'd say this is the weakest one, but it's a brilliant one.
A lot of the humour felt for Bottom kind of like gentle humour, almost. I noticed in the opening part when Eddie comes home drunk, not a lot of the lines and the gags were getting the big reactions. It was all sort of smattering of polite applause and stuff like that.
Yeah,
not a bad episode at all.
No, I mean, it's an interesting concept of him coming home drunk, which I think is the first time you properly see Eddie smashed.
This is the
in the
first
way
time
that he
he's
is.
cartoon level drunk as he
Yeah.
is in the latest series,
Yeah.
with him drinking substance abuse things.
Yeah, and Richie obviously having the pinny on, waiting for him to come home.
That's
and
a subversion of the classic sitcom thing, the husband and wife thing we've said numerous times.
Exactly. The opening of this episode just sums up their relationship.
Yeah.
The character's playing a character as well, isn't he? He's doing a send-up thing. He's ironing his underpants, which no one does.
Especially when they're that dirty. You'd put them through the wash a few more
horrible
times.
tea stain by the look of, well, you hope it's tea. This reminds me of times when I've lived with people and been in relationships where you get home drunk and the person has stayed up deliberately just so they can be in a bad mood with you and let you know.
Really?
Yeah.
Are you sure that's deliberate or that's just what's happened?
There's a real thing of the nagging wife here, isn't there? You know, that Richie's putting on. What time do you call this?
Oh, yeah, and I mean, he's reading that magazine as well to start off with, isn't he? Which
I
is
can't quite tell what it is. It's probably
Family
gonna be
Circle.
So Richie's actions here and his demeanour actually put me in mind slightly of the episode in the first series, Contest, where he's waiting at home for Eddie. He's doing something, and when he knows Eddie's about to come in, he pretends to do something else.
Yeah.
So it's another example of, in this case, it was the husband at work, in inverted commas, for the day, because he was at the dole office. In this instance, it's the husband coming home drunk. And in both cases, it's the wife waiting at home. While it started like that and put me in mind of Contest, the farce-like nature of this episode, it was kind of like a classic British farce in that it then reminded me of Gasp because you had the we need to hide the body aspect, which is a staple of, like, you've seen in other things like Fawlty Towers and, you know, other things.
Yeah.
It almost felt like Rick and Aid's subversion of the whoops, there go my trousers, oh god, the vicar's coming round kind of thing, you know?
Yeah, it escalates to, as you've already said, a complete farce with them obviously using sellotape to tie up the burglar, etc.
Yeah.
We're jumping ahead. But it is also a comment as well on the police and criminality and how I think Richie and Eddie obviously have never really turned to anything criminal, even though they are pretty much on the bones of their arse.
They're broken into stealing gas and things. This one does feel a step up. You're right.
Yeah, like it's because it presents itself to them, doesn't it? The opportunity to be quite dastardly. The police have only ever really been on the phone, haven't they, in the past with Richie talking to them and things like that. It's a brilliant way for them to sort of like have a comment on. I mean, it was done a lot in the young ones.
Sure, it says definitely the policeman is playing a young one's character where he doesn't say anything racist, but I would have been
PC
racist.
Plod comes in.
The police in this are very much the face of authority. The fascist regime come round just to smash the stereo if you're having too much fun.
But at first he's gone to them for help though. Well, not at first. At first they try and mimic it, don't they? So it's that idea of what the policeman character is as well on telly that they've obviously watched growing up. They start doing a sort of almost Sweeney thing, don't they? Like jumping around and slapping each other. You're right, it is very gentle in some ways, the humour in it. But then again, drinking bleach and it's sort of using household objects again.
The jokes never really get the belly laughs. When I say...
there's a lot of throwaway things at the beginning bit. I'd agree.
I don't mean the situation is gentle. I mean, a lot of the jokes never get the huge laughs that you'd expect. The whole actual story is, and I love that they do this in a primetime BBC Two sitcom at the time, which is that you have characters who engage in criminality, but it's often because of other reasons. With the gas man, they're trying to avoid what they think is a prison sentence because they think they've got to dispose of a dead body. In this one, the way both of them, the pair of utter fucking psychopaths, just decide unanimously, agree, yeah, we will kill this person.
Eddie brings it up. He's like, we could kill it. It comes out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And the atmosphere turns, but then Richie's on board right away.
And think of any other sitcom where a character would suggest this. I can't think of one.
Or maybe It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Right, okay, which came many years later.
Sure.
Yeah.
For a sitcom.
Play that for laughs.
Yeah.
And us to all go with it.
Yeah.
And I suppose it's because he is a criminal, the burglar. Doesn't deserve to die
It's
for his
the
petty
same-
theft.
It's the same thing that you were saying in episode 2 in Gas, and why do we like them? Why do we still like these people when they're talking about murders? This episode, as you said before, very much a farce that has a play element to it.
Yeah.
But I think it's because we as Brits like the underdog in a sitcom. That is a given, isn't it? And we always want them to do better than the bottom of the heap that they're on. So I think that is why we are with them in a really strange way, even though what they're doing is horrendous and no one would think to do it themselves. They've gone from the escalation of being scared of this guy to capturing him. And then you're kind of rooting for them. Then it turns, and then suddenly
It
you're
doesn't
sort
seem
of like,
evil,
oh, yeah.
does it? It doesn't seem evil. It seems a
I
necessity
think
thing.
it's because we know at the back of our heads that they're not actually going to pull it off.
But-
And that stuff's not worth enough to get them to the Bahamas.
Yeah, sure. But say it's we're not going to pull it off. They literally plan to kill him, and they literally poison him. They put it in his mouth. He drinks. The only reason it just doesn't work, they give him enough. But they went through with it. And it's just a bad luck on bad planning their part. So that's much further than they've gone before.
Who got, at the time, the car swapping party? That went totally over my head.
I agree. As a kid, I didn't understand any of that. Wife swapping is more of a cliche thing of like the 70s, maybe, with anyone that doesn't understand. It's basically people putting keys in the bowl. It's basically putting names in the hat, but using your car keys instead, and then you'd swap
I think
partners.
that went over my head when I first watched it. It's not a piece of dialogue that I remember quoting much when I was younger. But I mean, it's a funny idea, isn't it?
But
especially for them, the payoff.
You'd need to know what a wife swapping party was in the first place in order to get the joke of the fact that it's been switched around to a car swapping party.
Yeah.
Which you probably wouldn't at that age.
By the way, we're all saying this as if it's meant to be watched by 8-year-olds. Adults are maybe most adults probably did get it.
Yeah. For the sake of clarity, I was 12 when I watched this when it went out.
Yeah, I would have been 8 or 9 at most.
I always thought that Eddie finding a quid down the sofa was a fantastically huge amount of money, considering he's only spent £1.75 getting drunk on his night out.
Him, it was like, round 2, off I go again. But she seems surprised he comes back, in fact. That bit. It did seem like, I did think he was in and out and gone.
That's the equivalent to us now of going out spending £175 on a night out. Coming home.
Is that the inflation rate? Is
No. I don't mean the exact amount, obviously. But imagine it like this. Imagine you went out and spent £175 on a night out, came home and then found £100 in the sofa. You'd go out. You do what Eddie does and you go out again.
Yeah.
Talking of inflation, £1.75 for a fish supper. Incredible.
Yeah. Like they're about the best part of £10 now or something.
I suppose so.
Fish and chips.
Yeah.
And
He does
adult
just
portion.
say, where is my bit of halibut? Maybe he just meant fish. Still, you wouldn't get a bit of halibut for
I imagine they'd
£1.75.
be going for the OAP's portion or something, special offer. Fish supper. That's something that OAP's order, isn't it?
He'd be going in there with a limp, claiming that he hurt his leg at Goose Green or
But
something.
even so, that's probably still best part of a £5 now, isn't it? So very, very cheap deal. Also, first mention of Neptune's Pantry and Lamb and Flag. I love that town planners gag.
Yeah. Blaming the town.
Yeah.
How dare he?
Because it's very gentle, like you say, like in terms of what they're talking about.
It
A lot
is,
of this dialogue, but there are some really cracking lines in there. Like, I've liquidised your assets.
That's a really
that's
clever
a great
joke. I didn't get that as a kid.
Yeah, that's a great punchline.
There are some really, really clever, almost like stand-up, I think, kind of lines that are just boom, boom,
So
boom.
I'd say this, there's a lot of things that kind of fall flat. I think a lot of this stuff, there's loads of setups that pay off in this episode later.
In terms of story, it's got a fairly solid story of A leads to B leads to C leads
Yeah,
to
a
D.
lot of callbacks.
And it's very physical performance from Aid, which we're actually more
Which is
used
rare.
to seeing Rick do, aren't we? And
Yeah,
Rick,
Richie's...
I mean, even so, though, I think Rick steals that where he just like leans backwards and
Yeah.
misses Eddie's punch.
Oh, that's the
He
last
falls
punch.
into the sofa.
The last punch, Eddie's so happy, and then decides to punch Richie when Richie hasn't been doing anything, but then falls
Yeah.
over instead.
Yeah.
It's like the vicious, spiteful nature in him that just comes out in a mean drunk.
Absolutely, and you know, Richie would be the bad wife and is usually, but because he's so drunk he misses. But it's just the ease in which that he just literally kind of just leans out of the way of it.
Eddie's desire to drink more when he gets home. That puts me in mind of the time when you go out and you get totally hammered and you get home and you think, before I go to bed, I'm going to pour myself a really large drink. So you wake up on the sofa in the morning
With the drinks to wear.
next to a pint glass that's 3/4 full of vodka and a quarter full of Diet Coke because you thought, I'm just going to have one more before bed. And so what does Eddie do to the nth degree? Goes and drinks bleach.
That was mentioned for a phone-in on Live and Kicking or
Really?
something.
Really?
With Rick Mail and Adrian Emerson touring,
Oh.
doing Bottom Live, and they were on a kids'
Oh,
program
yeah.
thing, so it was ridiculous because kids couldn't buy a ticket anyway.
That's on YouTube now, isn't it?
It is on YouTube.
Yeah.
We'll put a link to that in this episode's description. Now, there's a bit where some kid says, do you think kids will repeat drinking bleach and things like that? And Adrian Emerson's like, no.
Not that their parents set them up to say
No,
that.
they're not idiots.
No, but hopefully you will for asking that stupid fucking question.
That's got to have been a parent that set them up to ring in with that, I think.
Oh, do you think that... Just like, get a fucking friend, you little prick.
So yeah, Precocious Little Children, that is a great clip of them on Live and Kicking.
It's a bit cringe, isn't it, that clip?
Yeah,
like,
they
it's
clearly don't
so
want to be
tasty.
there. I love the fact that the lid's actually off the bleach already as well. Like, so Eddie's
Right.
been at it before he went
yeah,
out
Eddie's
probably,
right.
and there's just a little drop left really that he downs, isn't
Yeah.
there? It looks almost,
Or he gets
it
the last of
probably
it.
is an empty bottle. Eddie's bar as well.
Does
There's
it
under
say
the
it?
sink.
Oh no, he just says that, Eddie. Welcome to
Welcome
Eddie's
to
bar.
Eddie's bar.
Yeah.
All the
I mean-
chemicals under the sink.
Yeah,
We've
I mean,
seen
when you
Eddie's
think
bar
about
and
it,
something
it
else,
is
isn't it?
pretty dangerous that kids were watching that sort of thing.
But
It's not meant to be.
But
watched.
yeah,
They're
but
not meant to be.
that show went out at 9 o'clock.
But again, like, I think we've mentioned before, like, would they allow that to be in a comedy show now? Maybe, because it's only light-hearted and it's Eddie's
Yeah.
character.
But then there's so much violence in this show, you know, stabbing people in the bollocks with forks and stuff like that, being punched off a roof.
What I like is that this isn't the first time Richie's had to put Eddie to bed.
No, it's a whole routine, isn't it? First of all, there's a really throwaway little gag of him saying he's more nice than Jesus and Mahatma Gandhi. It's a throwaway thing for him to say as well. That he's so deluded in it of himself.
Well, he's saying it all to himself as well,
Yeah.
because interestingly, Rick comes to the foreground and he could break the fourth wall while Eddie's swirling around like an evil dervish. But he doesn't. He's still just talking to himself, isn't
Yeah,
he, Richie?
yeah.
He doesn't break the fourth wall, even though it is sort of the
Sure.
audience. And then he's just talking out loud to himself as he's putting Eddie to bed because
Yeah.
Eddie's completely comatose.
It's clearly a routine that him as the wife has done a million times before, to the point that he's able to throw the rope through the pulley accurately because he's done it so many times before. And obviously they just pull it out and
reverse it.
play the film backwards.
Well, so just the fact that he has a rope as
Yeah.
well. That's what obviously there's some.
Yeah.
The physics in that is absolutely ridiculous, isn't it?
When he first says, right, where's the noose? I think at
gonna
the
hang
time, the thought is, oh, he's going to kill Eddie or he's going to hang Eddie or something.
Yeah.
And then you see, okay, it goes around the foot.
Cricket bat bit at
Convoluted.
the end. It flips him right
What a
round,
great way of getting him down.
Yeah, needlessly violent right at the end. Now, I've got a contradictory memory here. I remember someone from school singing Do Your Balls Hang Low before I'd seen the episode.
Oh.
But I also remember seeing the episode on TV
Yeah.
when it came out. So I imagine I saw it while it was coming out. Or maybe it was this that I saw it on a repeat.
It's interesting that you mentioned school and the Balls Hang Low song because
Yeah.
I actually wasn't allowed to play with one of my friends again after
they sang
this
it.
episode went out because I copied down the lyrics to the song for my friend.
Yeah.
She asked me to.
Really?
Because she didn't have it on tape.
Right.
So I copied down the lyrics word for word,
Yeah.
pausing it, rewinding it, took it into school and gave it to her. And her mum obviously found this note and I got banned from talking to
Oh, no,
my
horrible
friend ever
when
again.
parents did that sort of stuff.
Yeah,
You're banned
it's
from
like,
friends.
oh,
It's
don't-
Shakespearean in tragic when you're little.
I think it only lasted for about 2 weeks or so, but yeah,
Yeah.
I certainly was never invited round to their house again.
Right.
Thanks, Rick and Aid.
Do you think, did this song come from this episode or is it Richie? Or is it Rick
No, I
Mal?
think it's a well-known sort of...
Is it?
I think it's a
Oh.
well-known tune, isn't it? I don't think they've written it, have they?
Did he not take a well-known tune and adapt it by putting the word balls in there? Is it not...
Oh,
in-
maybe.
Well,
Is
yeah,
the
that's
original
what I
one
thought
not... Does your something else hang low?
Do the bells hang low or something?
Something
Probably.
It's
like that.
definitely some kind of old sea
Yeah,
It's a nautical thing.
But are these lyrics written by Rick Mail and Adrian Emerson is my question. Now, I looked up online for this, so I couldn't get a definitive answer.
Yeah.
What I did find is this song was credited by someone called Coit, Koit, but released in 2011. So, Coit,
Really?
how fucking dare you?
Oh, really?
You thieving bastard yobbo, how fucking dare you credit yourself as the creator of
Yeah.
this? Because it's definitely not you who's created it.
Even if Rickman and Ade Edmondson didn't specifically copyright that song, the script for this is copywritten, therefore those words are.
Yeah, 2011. Any listeners of the show, please find Coit and send him a message saying, how dare you?
Coit sounds a made-up name, doesn't it?
It's
We'll
a
never
bit-
Maybe
track
it's
him
a
down.
pseudonym of AIDS.
It's a bit similar to Goit from Red Dwarf, isn't it?
Yeah.
Can we talk about Eddie's disappointingly racist comment
Yeah.
while he's being dragged up
Well, yeah, it doesn't sit well
there?
when you
yeah.
rewatch it.
What
does
we're
it?
talking about, so quoting here, he's, while being dragged up the stairs in a drunken haze.
It's
says,
as if
"Do
he's
y-"
being tortured.
Yeah, he says, "Do your worst, you slanty-eyed fiend,"
Yeah.
referring to prisoner war stuff, I'd imagine, the Japanese.
I think often with these things, the way to try and judge it is, was that acceptable at the time? And the answer is no. In the early 90s, that wasn't acceptable. But what Ade was doing was taking the kind of thing that someone in a 1940s setting would have been saying, because they would have been being tortured at war. that
And
kind
he's
of thing.
drunk. He's talking without really thinking about what
Yeah.
he's saying is the get out. For
Yeah.
that. I thought it didn't sound quite right. Watching it this time around and analysing it, the comment on it is that Eddie's completely out of his mind and he's probably quoting something from some film he's watched.
Yeah.
Or
yeah.
some,
Yes,
you
he
know,
was not
it's not like
actually in
he
war,
was
was
a
it?
prisoner of war, is it?
It's
He's
a
quoting.
fantasist type thing. Pretty soon after this, Eddie gets sent to bed in a drunken haze, and then Richie goes to masturbate with his very over-the-top loud zip noise, and
The same hand blow.
yeah, like-
that's you need to warm up the hand. That's so creepy.
How
isn't it?
cold are
Really?
Richie's hands?
Yeah, I don't know.
That his knob must shrink away every time they go
That's why
near.
it's so small. It's got really, really cold hands. That's what it actually is. The problem. Now, the burglar sound effects kick in like immediately. Immediately, the timing's perfect.
Which
Now,
and they're all quite good. They're quite varied, aren't they?
yeah. Now, when you were little, first time watching this, did you just assume it's not actually burglars? They're making a mistake, jumping to conclusions.
No. I
You
assumed
thought
it was a burglar.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's called burglary, isn't it? So yeah, I'm an idiot.
I think at the first sound I heard, I thought, oh, that's one of them in their room. And then Richie comes out
couple, yeah.
and reacts to what's going on downstairs, and you think, okay, there is someone downstairs.
There's
Yeah.
a dodgy sound effect there when he said, "Eddie, is that you?" And then Eddie farts, but it sounds to me more like a creaky floorboard.
It's a very deep one, isn't it?
And so I
Yeah.
didn't get it the first time. It's like, oh, was that a
okay.
fart? Yeah, small complaint there. You see Eddie's bedroom for the first time in this episode, I believe. Just a little glimpse of it.
Yes.
And his QPR
Yeah.
posters, yeah.
And scarves and things.
No, he's mad on football,
Football,
apparently.
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
never actually talks about it. Now, all the drawing room stuff comes up next. Anyone ever called it a drawing room in real life, I will think of Rick Mel in this, this episode.
Even in the midst of a crisis, even when he thinks his life is at stake, he's got time to be a snob and aspire to middle classness and to put Eddie down. You're so What does he say? You're so common.
And what do you call it?
Living room.
Oh, the living room. Yeah.
In your house, yeah, living
yeah.
room. Or telly room, actually, we used to
telly
say.
room,
We used to
that
say
does
telly
sound
to
very
me and
northern.
my brother when we were little, but it would be the living room.
Okay.
Yeah. I might call it the lounge.
We'd have to go for any of the three that, I would go for lounge, the
Other than
lounge.
sitting room drawer. I do love the callbacks to the colouring room, the sketching room. Why do Richie and Eddie make the assumption that these burglars are also satanic murderers?
Right.
It's the escalation of their imagination,
Yeah.
isn't it? It's so much worse than what they would
Using our love,
All they would do is
truncheons as wickets, isn't
beat
that?
them up, isn't it? Yeah, whereas they've got this mad fantasy.
But what's also great about this fantasy is that coming shortly after they were both willing to surrender cowardly to the burglars downstairs, Eddie goes on this flight of fantasy with Richie. Usually this is Richie's domain, and Richie would have this kind of weird fantasy in his own head where these things would happen. But what happens? They both one-up each other until we're in some kind of weird voodoo cannibalistic situation.
Right. I think we forgive a bit of Eddie's
He's
odd
pissed out of
behaviour
his
is
head,
because
yeah.
he's drunk, isn't he, still?
He does seem to have sobered up right at
He
this
does
moment.
sober up when
Yeah.
it's clear that there's a burglar
Starts
downstairs.
screaming.
Yeah.
As you do when a frightening situation suddenly happens. But yeah, I think he goes with him completely on this flight of fancy.
Now, what does the Chesterfield actually mean? What is the Chesterfield? It sounded like the Chesterfield.
A
What is-
Chesterfield is a sofa.
Okay.
A leather.
Oh, is it? Oh,
Yeah.
for some reason I thought it was going to be like a writing desk or like one of those,
No.
so,
So-
like a cabinet that you open up or something.
In fancy pubs, there's sort of like two-seater kind of leather sofas that
Right.
have like the little buttons in them.
Oh, yeah.
They're all very tightly packed.
Yeah.
I think that's what Chesterfield is.
Okay.
Feel free to refute me.
Do you know anything about the place Chesterfield?
Do they make cigarettes there?
I don't know, maybe. All I know is that it had a church with a twisted spire, and that was like a big tourist attraction.
That's right, yeah.
Now,
So any Russian spies listening, that can be your next place to visit. Another example of some fairly gentle humour or gentle jokes at the time that, again, I didn't really get was a lot of the drug references. I don't think even though Lemsip existed, I knew what it was, so I didn't get that. Definitely didn't know what Bicidol was. I'm not even sure.
Good sounding word.
It is, but I'm not even sure what it is now. I assume it's like Panadol or something like that.
Because he says that'll get him on the move, I've always thought it's to help you with your constipation.
No, I think it's a painkiller.
And then when Richie says they've been snowballing heroin, I knew what heroin was, didn't know what snowballing meant.
What does that mean, actually, then? What, rolling around in it?
I've always thought he's cross-referencing his drugs, and snowballing would be what you do to cocaine.
Yeah.
So he
Right.
gets it wrong, obviously, because he doesn't really know.
Looking back on it now, I thought he had fucked it up with doing a speedball.
Any drug addicts listening, send in your instructions of what to do with each drug.
I thought the lock on the roof hatch was a nice callback to the episode where they go up on the roof. It would have made sense that the landlord or the local authority or the police or something would have locked it, and I thought, great callback, until Richie pulls out the key and you go, all right, well, you can go up there anytime anyway. Yeah.
But they have taken the ladder, the police.
Do you think the nurses moved in next door because Mr. Rottweiler moved out?
Oh, yeah, didn't think about that.
Yeah. Or is this another side of this building? And maybe a random number like 58 or something of this.
They've been viewing them from the roof. Don't know whether they'd have been looking at them from Rottweilers.
Right, one thing I want to bring up is Eddie's gun. Now, he said he was bequeathed this, so presumably he's had it fucking years, right? Since he was a kid, I think, because he's got a kind of weird fairy tale-esque origin with him being abandoned as a kid, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah, it's his mother's service revolver.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, therefore, we can assume he's had it forever, right?
Yeah.
And it's the first time Richie's ever seen it. So I want to commend Eddie on being such a responsible gun owner. At no point in his angry, vicious tirade towards Richie has he ever pulled a gun on him.
Yeah, a violent alcoholic drunk is the worst person in the world to own a gun.
You think of any other comedy characters who are violent and angry who have a gun? Back to It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Frank, Danny DeVito's character, pulls a gun out quite often.
Right.
Think of any other characters that you like who have a gun?
In The League of Gentlemen.
That's exactly who I was going to say.
You know, I've got this gun, don't you?
Yeah.
But isn't that also a trope of if you ever do improv and then you can't think of what to do, if you pull out a gun,
Oh, really?
then you've ruined the scene.
Oh, right, I didn't know that.
Michael
I think-
Scott in The Office kept doing that, didn't he?
Yeah, Jeff's still quite likeable, even though he's absolutely ridiculous.
I quite like Eddie's gun. It's nice. Until it bananas at the end.
Oh, it's so weird. You see it in the background, but they don't give you a shot of it close up, so you can miss it, and then they sort of react to it.
The gunfire is all very... Is it quite similar to when they're at the fair, actually, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
I don't know if they're the same sound effects or not.
I didn't notice it until this time. A bit just before Richie climbs up and then he falls off onto the light bulb, he recoils in disgust for having to touch Eddie.
Yes, yeah. Touching his back to climb up, yeah.
Yeah, it's very physical, isn't it, that bit? For Rick, I mean, holding on, and presume he's genuinely holding on to that little bit of string, do you think? Or do you think someone's got his legs propped up underneath?
You can't see his feet, so he just couldn't feel his knees or something.
In the
I
shot
was
where...
quite impressed with his upper body strength.
And the moment where the thing explodes... I double watched it. He doesn't let go. The entire thing actually drops through. So there's obviously some kind of mechanism in place. I was looking actually a bit more closely at the visual effects for this episode. I remember at the time there were several names at the end of the shows that I liked. Often these would be the directors and the producers, people like Ed Bye and Paul Jackson and John Lloyd. Paul Jackson, he was the producer.
Okay.
He did Red Dwarf as well.
And there was also a name that often appeared on Red Dwarf and Bottom, which was Peter Ragg. He does the visual effects. And it made me think, watching this episode, seeing the bad electricity sparks that we see in this, and we've kind of joked about how they're often quite, shall we say, low budget in Bottom, how he could do such a brilliant job in Red Dwarf. I'm not saying he did a bad job in Bottom. His skills were utilised so effectively in Red Dwarf, whereas in this, you never really felt that the VFX and the special effects were that special.
Do you think they're meant to be a little bit crap, though?
Well, you want them to look as realistic and as violent as possible. I mean, having said that, things like the flames exploding were always quite good, but whenever there was anything with electricity...
I think that's just the cartoon element.
Because the gun going like that is a cartoon trope, isn't it? Like, that happens in
Bugs
cartoons,
Bunny
doesn't it?
thing,
Where the end of the gun's completely shot
They
off.
plug the thing with their finger and it will explode back onto Elmer Fudd's face.
All the gun was missing was the word Acme down the side of it.
The stuff with Richie talking about the nurses and stuff, that's yet another example of one of Richie's off-screen adventures of him trying to pervert things. So we don't actually see it on screen that often. you don't really see him having a scheme just to pervert women on screen, or do you?
No, well, we saw him trying to pervert women when Rottweiler had a girlfriend next door, and he crawled across the guttering outside.
He's got his binoculars, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Strategically placed in the window in the kitchen.
I quite like to think, based on the information they give us in this episode, that it involved the hatch to the roof and a ladder and the nurses next door. We know that they did this via the roof. They didn't go via the guttering outside or anything. I quite like the idea of Richie hanging from a rope like Spider-Man upside down, watching the nurses through their windows. And they don't notice until they turn around, and there he is, just kind of grinning, but upside down.
That's a terrifying thought.
Can you imagine him?
See why they called the police.
Can you imagine him just slowly dropping down into the window frame?
Hanging out.
I think it wouldn't be that graceful, really,
So,
from Richie, would it? I think it would be a thud.
Speaking of Richie falling off of something, this is what happens to the light.
Yeah.
Falls off and lands on Nigel from EastEnders, who's fallen on hard time and is now a burglar.
Hands up, everyone else was going to say Nigel from EastEnders.
Yeah. It was both 1992 that you started in this and EastEnders, so which came first?
I'm not sure, actually.
I recognised him as Nigel back then.
Yeah.
Well,
so it must have been. Can we just have a little moment and say how much did everyone love Nigel from EastEnders in EastEnders?
Loved his shirts.
You know, he also appeared in
Red Dwarf.
but he also appeared in the pilot episode of The Young Ones. With
Yes, he was.
Gosh, I really hope we don't have a crash. The pilot.
Well, it also says that he was in episode 5 of series 1 in Interesting as one of the party goers.
Oh,
okay.
Yes, he was.
Warlock.
Yeah,
the hippie. Get your lips around that.
Yeah.
Paul Bradley is someone who EastEnders has this kind of weird curse, and few people have managed to escape it. That if you're in EastEnders for a while and you play the square idiot. So if you're the Wixie in the 80s, or the Robbie Jackson, or the
Barry,
or the Sid Owen, or the Barry, or someone like that, and if you're there too long, that's it. You're normally consigned there until they get rid of you. Paul Bradley and Cliff Parisi, I think the guy's name is, who's now in Call the Midwife, they managed to escape this. They've gone on to do other things. Paul Bradley was always very good at comedy, kind of quite an underrated comedy actor. Did things like Red Dwarf and The Young Ones, and then after this went on to do a long stint at Holby. So he's kind of someone who's, I think, is a bit underrated, but he'll always be remembered as Nigel because of the stupid fucking curly hair and the loud shirts.
I don't know if this is a rumour or is it true. Now, I heard the reason he left EastEnders is that they came to him with a storyline where it turns out that your character is a paedophile. And makes a move on his stepdaughter Claire from my memory.
Yeah.
And he was just furious, like, no, that's not how I've been playing it.
Yeah.
That's everyone likes my character. No, I'm not doing it, and just left. That's what I heard.
Oh wow, okay. I'd not heard that rumour.
No, I didn't know that, no.
Wonder what inspired the BBC writers to want to write that sort of thing in the mid-90s. Happens in real life. I'd never heard that about poor old Nigel. How did Nigel get written out then?
I don't know.
I think he
made to
he
eat
didn't
poison?
Die. He drove.
Did he leave in the back of a cab?
With his stepdaughter.
Did he?
Yeah, it was a happy ending, I think. But it was
as it drove away in the distance, you just saw Nigel turn around and look at the camera and give a sinister look, and then the image freeze framed, went black and white, and slowly pushed in on his face.
I think he's very likeable and strangely not believable as a burglar.
He's
at
a
all.
well-dressed burglar. You notice now it's quite fashionable to be in a bomber jacket with the tartan lining.
Right,
that's what he's wearing. That's really fashionable these days.
I mean, that outfit is the kind of traditional doorman look, isn't it? It's the bouncer look.
I guess so.
I've just thought he's wearing black. I didn't really notice.
He has definitely got the tartan. So once they've completely accidentally overpowered this burglar,
and then comes the first mention of the Hammersmith hard men.
Is that the first time he's ever mentioned?
I think it is, isn't it?
Richie's,
I think so.
Richie's little tough guy slapping act is really kind of sweet. It's very much in character. He's won for something. So yes.
Richie,
I'm the man.
I think Richie must have spent a long time watching either British cop shows like the Sweeney or LA-based ones, like the Columbos and things like that. Things like, I know Eddie says just joshing with your chief, but he was just toying with your punk. He really put me in mind of the whole, just give me 24 hours, I'm going to get Mayor Dooley.
Yeah,
absolutely. Very similar to the contest rant on the phone.
Yeah.
He's just watched telly at home and he's absorbed all these lines that he doesn't really know what they mean. And also, interestingly, he claims to be a Falklands veteran.
In this one?
Yeah, I noticed
that. Oh, yes, I'm a Falklands veteran.
They mentioned it in Apocalypse as well. I hurt my leg in the Falklands.
And then of course they build
the line
all of...
changes, but it adapts and evolves. So that's nice.
It then obviously evolved into a whole episode really about him, which we'll explore next week in Parade.
It's some wonderful nervousness from Richie again, akin to his dating video where he tries to talk to the burglar and gets all sort of sweaty and nervous. A bit like he's a guy on a first date again.
Yeah, it's all bravado, isn't it? When he's with Eddie, and then when he's got to go and actually do something hard and dangerous, he just completely loses it.
Yeah. Well, the guy's completely no threat anymore. That line, like, gosh, you've got a big bottom, does really feel like words put into his mouth. It doesn't feel like...
Do you think they shoehorn that in because they wanted the word bottom in the episode?
I think so. It's just very much the language of the show. It didn't feel right to me.
Which is strange because they don't say bottom in every episode, do they?
It wasn't like a calling card, was it? It wasn't like we will have it in each episode. You'd have thought arse would have been better and more, and might have worked better for the gag. I don't know.
Maybe they thought big bottom sounds better because it's the double B.
When Eddie sits down, tough guy style, with his legs around the chairs, and asks him the question about Emmerdale Farm. Does his voice suddenly sound a bit odd to you?
When he's trying to do an impression, yeah.
Oh, right, okay. I always wondered if there was something wrong with the audio, because the way his voice goes, it's like, it almost sounds like Buffalo Bill. You see Emmerdale Farm last night?
Yeah, he's trying to act like some sort of, like...
But it's
tough, grizzled
investigator.
But it sounds like an audio problem, like there's reverb with his microphone or something.
Last night, yeah, he's doing some sort of... I've always thought it's a bit like the Sweeney or something.
Right.
So they tie him up. Good gag as well. So I can't seem to see the rope anywhere. It was obviously on the pulley upstairs.
Yeah.
The
rope that we used 30 seconds ago. Yeah.
And then using sellotape is such a childish thing to do. That's it's spot on. Sellotapes a brand name as well. Sticky tape. I think adhesive tape.
Oh right, okay.
But they've already said it, haven't they?
Right.
No one calls it sticky tape. Sellotape. That's what it is. And it's if everyone's heard of sellotape.
Actually, you should say public address system rather than tannoy.
But again, when we mentioned earlier the farce element of this episode, nothing sums it up more for me than when Richie sort of follows him round the burglar with the sellotape. It looks like one of those sped up cartoon moments, doesn't it?
He just likes being involved, I think. He's excited, and it's there's no benefit to him being in the spinny bit.
Oh yeah, he's just so in with what we're going to do it to him, Eddie, and all that. I mean, again, it's the building mania of Rick, isn't it, as well?
And then the farcical, cartoonish element of, we'll put sellotape round his hat. It's the equivalent of a character who has a teddy bear and the character gets injured, and so they put like a little sling on the teddy bear as well. Like, obviously, sellotape does not need to go on his fucking hat, but it looks good on there. And how hot must Nigel from EastEnders have been underneath all of that?
Oh man, the production design on that with the mound of sellotape, it looks great. I guess it would have been some sort of body cast and then that covered in sellotape that you could slip in and out of. But all it is loads of sellotape.
Very convincing. I've always thought he is completely sellotaped up to...
I gotta say, I didn't see the moustache being ripped off coming. It's brilliant. It's fucking horrid.
The noise.
It's only half the moustache as well, which is weirder.
Yeah, and then the red mark that's left behind as well.
Waxed,
it looks really sore.
Did you notice the first time Richie goes off to question him, he's like, do I look good because I feel great? Eddie gives him a wanker sign.
Yeah, and that's a repeat from Culture as well, isn't it? With the I feel great in the smoking jacket.
Yeah, that wanker sign almost feels like it should have been played to camera from Aid, but instead he just does it to Richie as Richie walks off, doesn't he?
Now, how worth burgling their house do you think it is?
Oh, it's got to be the last fucking choice in all of Hammersmith.
Mind you, they might have had some of the leftover silverware from Digger. I think he's got the antique 5 antique chess pieces left.
Yeah.
The TV, the broken TV from the last episode. It can't be much.
No, there's the bugger all, I'd say.
Yeah, and what an effort as well. You've got to go upstairs to get to their place, presumably.
Through the shop.
Yeah. But also, were people waiting for them to go to bed?
The lights to go out, probably.
I mean, how sinister is that?
It is. Well, I don't know whether burglars do that sort of thing, but... They probably do, don't they? Lights gone out, right? They've probably gone to bed. Quite brave to try and burgle anyone's house while someone's in, really.
Yeah. And with starting smash the window. They've gone, the lights
Not
are
very
out,
subtle
obviously
at all.
asleep. Immediately, that's what happens, right?
Yeah, do you think they came in through the conservatory then? No, because where's the broken glass?
Yeah, there isn't broken glass yet.
So you see the bookcase has been pulled over and a few things on the floor, but that's presumably while they're turning the place over.
But you see the front door, do you? So it could have been a window in the door or something.
So there's the reveal that the other burglars, of course, clinging outside of that way. So maybe Nigel / Mr. Scrubs, is it the burglar's name?
One's Mr. Wormwood and one's Mr. Scrubs.
I think Paul Bradley's Mr. Scrubs, and he's obviously got in a different way, and then he's meant to be letting the other guy in, I suppose.
Now, my memory with this, watching it on TV, I had my own TV in my bedroom with a like kind of rabbit ears antenna. It wasn't the main house antenna, so the picture was dodgy. You had to fiddle around with each channel. Now, I remember you'd get kind of a ghost effect on some people sometimes if it was raining, something weird. So when he went outside and saw the silhouette, I didn't know if that was actually a burglar or a reflection of Eddie from my TV. So suspense was even bigger for me. Like, was that? Did I see that? Was that right?
Yeah. I always thought that the guy there was a bit bait because the policeman comes and looks out, and it's that suspension of disbelief that.
Why didn't he see him? It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, he obviously would have seen him.
Yeah, but I mean, he didn't really look, did he? But that's the state of the police, isn't it?
I love
not
when
got
he
enough
calls
money to look around properly outside a window, have they?
When Richie calls the police up, I love the police. Who do you think?
Yeah, it's this weird sort of sense of why the fuck don't you know exactly what I want right now?
A moment of panic, I suppose. You'd just expect the help to be there immediately.
Yeah.
And of course, that phone call is the only mention of their address, I believe. 11 Mafeking Parade. That's the only time it's ever mentioned.
Oh, is it really?
I believe so. It's the only time I can remember it being said.
I think so. Certainly it's the first mention. I don't know if it's ever mentioned in the live shows.
Yeah.
Now, where would they sell off all the silverware on their back alley connections or something?
Probably someone called Harry the something.
Now, they also say, like, we could sell off the silverware, sell the flat. What do you mean sell the flat? Don't you have a landlord? You do, like, the auntie owns it, or the landlord. The landlord comes back in this season, so they haven't forgotten. What's he fucking talking about?
Also, if the flat's worth a lot, why don't you just sell that in the first place and fuck off to the Bahamas?
Now, so it's almost a catchphrase, dusky young maidens fulfilling every sordid whim. We've heard this before in Carnival, and I think again.
Yeah.
It's another one of their almost catchphrases, right?
Do you think he says whim trying to sound
whim,
like quim?
Isn't it? Whim. I don't know.
Oh, maybe. No. I assumed he was just trying to pronounce it really poshly. You know, whim.
Okay, I've always thought he's trying to like say quim.
You just see quim everywhere, don't you?
Getting away with it on BBC primetime. Right. Weirdly, I think some people do say their W's like that, don't they? Really overemphasize
like
them.
the whole
Steve Coogan does
like
all
Dewey
the time
in,
as Partridge. I think there's a lot of Coogan sort of doing overemphasizing W. But anyway, it only occurred to me watching it this time.
Eddie's saying the whim as well, isn't it? So it's out of character.
But he definitely says it a little bit like...
It's strange,
whim.
The pencil up the nose bit.
Oh, I think that is the most extreme bit of violence in the entire show for me. I think it's more disgusting than the legs being chopped off with the chainsaw because it's so slow.
Oh, so you think the whole series, like...
I think that, to me, that is the most violent thing they do because it's so matter of fact and small, and it's slowly going up there, right?
It's so slow and deliberate, and the fact that you know that the thing that it's being pushed into is his fucking brain.
Yeah, the sound effect there is quite a horrific one.
It's
the
a kind of
to the eye is quite harsh and digger.
Yeah,
but it's the sound effect and, as you say, the prolonged nature of this one and Rick's face.
It's a slightly squelchy sound, isn't it, that goes in. Also, this move is one of the things that I would actually try and practice in front of the mirror doing to myself. You know, like if you want to try and learn a better sleight of hand or something like that, you practice it in front of the mirror. The thing I would do to try and impress like my family and so forth would be, look at me, I'm pushing a pencil up my nose.
I did this as well, and I also get a small file down pencil
and pop it up there.
Yeah, another thing that kids are emulating what they're seeing on bottom. I did it.
I never did any of that.
Yeah.
Well, we're stupid. But there's a bit I don't think I can't understand. A bit where he says, why don't you give him the old fish fingers? Pause. They've been in there for weeks. Was there another meaning for the old fish fingers? Is the old fish fingers...
Oh, right, okay.
A torture term or something? Or like, give him the old heave-ho? Is it something like that?
Sounds like it should be the name of a pub. Go down the old fish fingers.
The flushing the toilet thing. That's a nice callback. Because we mentioned I had a go at flushing the toilet.
I mean, you get the impression their toilet is permanently shitty and permanently blocked, though, don't you?
Yeah. Like, you don't think it's ever really clear with those two in the house, and neither of them prepared to clean it. Unless it's a game of cards, obviously. There is a sort of continuity thing here, isn't there? Because Eddie says he doesn't like fish fingers in...
You know what? Bottom's fish finger continuity is all over the fucking shop.
I know, dear points of view.
Yeah.
It's a minor thing, isn't it? Because if he's hungry, he'd probably eat anything, even with dog shit poked through them. I've always thought that I lost 3 stones last week. It's quite an extreme number, isn't it?
Stones instead of stone.
Yeah. It's an extreme number of stones to have
lost. Shat out organs and stuff. I don't know. How sinister does Richie look while making the tea, Mr. Burglar?
Right. Yeah. There's two noises that Rick Mail makes in this episode that I can't decide which is the better one. One is his one lump or two and then the laugh, which is, as you say, Matt, a kind of very sinister laugh. And the other one is his reaction when the police knock on the door. That
The panic, yeah.
As I think, if they'd have knocked on the door, waited for it to be answered, they'd have caught him. Open up, police.
It's also the brilliance of he answers it then and says, "Oh, I was fast asleep." When they clearly will have heard him.
Yeah.
I think the sinister / childish laugh probably just about wins.
Bringing the curtain back as well.
Yeah.
That's another last scene in Digger.
Yeah, using it as a little private partition to murder the burglars if he's not going to hear them.
Once again proving that thin curtains block out sound completely.
Now, I saw it coming a mile away. I'm sure you did too. But Eddie falling through the roof, still brilliant.
Yeah,
I like a joke being signposted sometimes. And the makeup on his cuts are brilliant.
Yeah.
They look viciously nasty and sporadic enough. They didn't take the piss with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, the one right across his head.
Yeah, that looks jagged and horrible.
Yeah.
It's a great stunt in itself. It's not something you can cheat. They just literally had to have, presumably a stunt guy, going through the entire thing. Obviously, it's safety glass and so forth, but such a fucking good stunt, you know?
Yeah, well, interestingly, it's Tipping
Yeah.
who's listed in the credits.
Okay.
Well, he's listed as what I'm assuming is one of the police.
Well, that's what I thought. But I was looking into it.
Yeah, so was I. Yeah.
He's not given a character name.
Well, no, Tipping is given a character name, but it's different to what the police sergeant calls the police constable.
So he says it's Jenkins, doesn't he? And then the other guy's got the credit because the other guy doesn't have any words.
Yeah, one less
No
question.
lines.
Gets to, I'm going to be bottom. Do you get any words? No, but you get to hit Richie over the head with a truncheon. Brilliant, I'm in.
So that I think Tipping is just in it being a stuntman, surely.
One less question for the quiz later.
Yeah.
I did remember his name.
Yeah.
It's definitely. It's like, that'll be your question.
But did you also find out what happened to Tipping?
Another question gone from the quiz later. Yes, of course. Yeah.
I didn't know this.
It's really sad. Like, unfortunately, Tipping passed away in literally 1994, doing a stunt for the 999.
Which, when I read about it, I realised I'd heard about that stunt. They were doing a parachuting recreation for a story that was on 999.
And it's basically Noel's Christmas Family Accidents, isn't it?
Bloody. Did the real accident result in a fatality?
Yeah.
The real one.
So the stunt guy.
So the stunt one was accurately representing.
And presumably they had to then do a recreation of the recreation.
Who did they get to do that?
Now.
Yeah. Wondered if maybe he did that stunt, but he was also the policeman, because the stunt was obviously done at a separate time to everything else. So you had Mr. Wormwood and Mr. Scrubs accredited as the two burglars, one of whom you never see the face of, but has been in a few other things. In fact, the burglar who you never see the face of is predominantly a voice actor who did a lot of voices on Red Dwarf. Like, if I was to
say anything either.
Yeah, he doesn't say anything in this, but if I was to say to you, today's fish is trout à la creme, that's him from Red Dwarf.
Enjoy your meal. Interestingly, he is also the male blob Hector in Red Dwarf.
Yes, the one who comes in and goes, "Are you ready, Camille?"
Yeah. So he's him. And also, he's Mr. Tent in Sout.
The guy who gets his willy caught in the zip.
Oh, right. So,
Flasher.
And he's in Filthy Rich and Catflap as one of the milkmen.
I assume there's a lot of crossover with actors in these smallish roles because you have someone like Ed Bye directs both Red Dwarf and Bottom, and when they are casting it, goes, I know someone who'd be good for that, a small part. Paul Bradley, who was in Red Dwarf. Rupert Bates, who was in Red Dwarf, blah, blah, blah.
We're not saying he got cast as a small part because he's Mr. Tent, are we? No.
And the other character who's a policeman is Jonathan Stratt, who plays the character of, even though he's wearing sergeant stripes, PC V. Jones, so we'll assume that's a play on Vinnie Jones. I don't want to say that he gets typecast as policeman, but he was also a PC in the British Empire, Birds of a Feather, and the comic strip Presents.
He's got a face for it, I guess.
Yeah,
He plays it well.
Yeah, like I had a look at his IMDb. He tends to either be a heavy, a doorman, or a police officer.
We're skipping around a little bit here. I want to go back to the tea, the poison tea. Did anyone have visions of gas? The way he says 3 mugs of steaming hot tea.
Yeah.
It's just kind of it's delivered differently, but it reminds you of it, right?
Yeah, steaming something tea.
It's the
And 3
idea
cups
of,
as well.
it's an idiosyncratic phrase, isn't it? Especially amongst the Brits. Nice.
Oh,
cup
and
of
how
steaming hot tea.
idiosyncratic and cliche is it that when the burglar, it's force-fed 3 cups of hot tea.
Yeah.
You still can't help but do the British.
Yeah.
Also, I've got to give props to whoever makes the vomit on bottom. They make brilliant, orangey, disgusting looking vomit. How is it? He drank tea, which only has a certain colour, and yet what comes out looks like carrot soup.
It's good poison.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Poison
It
poison.
has the same look as the vomit that Eddie throws over Richie's shoulder just before the cooker explodes.
Yeah,
first
I wonder what it's
episode, yeah.
made of.
I bet probably
Soup or something.
Yeah, probably like vegetable soup or something like that. Yeah.
Carrot. There's always carrots in stick, and
Yeah.
there's probably some carrot in there.
You know that it's
Is
not
it-
actually carrots, it's stomach lining.
I was
That's
about
what
to
it
say, is that a myth
Yeah.
or is that true?
Well, I don't know if it's a myth or not. That's what I've heard.
Your stomach lining looks like carrot.
I think it's time for a word from our sponsors.
Timotei shampoo is so mild you can wash your hair as often as you wish. Containing natural herb extracts, Timotei always leaves your hair silky and shiny. Timotei.
Well, it's a common thing in sitcoms for characters just be terrible liars. You know,
Yeah.
can't ever hide anything. Like Richie slipping up and like, you won't be needing it anyway. Oh, what do you mean? What's he mean?
Yeah.
Well, didn't you know? Eddie's completely insane. It's like, well, no, of course I didn't know. I don't know either of you two.
Yeah.
And you're clearly lying as well. So no, of course I didn't know.
They both clearly are insane. But
Yeah.
I also like about this, when he says he's insane, all Eddie does is act like Richie.
Yeah, yeah.
Just does a strange little Richie kind of, doesn't
Yeah.
he? Kind of does an impression of Richie to
Yeah.
say he's insane.
If you said to Eddie, give me a definition of insanity, he'd just point at Richie.
Yeah.
When the police are there and looking over definitely a crime scene. Something's definitely happened there.
Yeah.
How could Eddie have looked any more guilty than shivering behind an upside down newspaper to produce a scarred face with a pencil up his nose? What the conservatory in Beirut? What's that a reference to?
Bomb site. Beirut was a site of,
Okay.
I can't think what war or conflict.
Beirut is in the Middle East, which obviously had undergone quite a large period of war
Yeah, sure.
in the
A
preceding
bit like
2 years.
Baghdad, sort of names you'd hear all the time on the news in the 90s.
I just want to talk about the, again, amazing design of him being sellotaped to the ceiling. It looks like it's really been done.
Yeah, it's good, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've got no idea how they would achieve
Well,
that.
it's a fake body and he's sticking his head through the
Okay.
ceiling. I'd imagine something like that.
Because it does look very convincing, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That he's actually fully there.
Well, you know, the body's so amassed in sellotape, you wouldn't be
Yeah.
able to see any movement, so it just need to have a shape
Yeah,
of the body.
yeah.
It's probably what's happened. When the police are in the process of leaving, not even through the door, Eddie says, "Oh, bloody, well, that was a close one." Fucking hell.
But I also love the Whack Him Jenkins as well.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
again, just that painting a picture of the police as just they're going to rough you up, and then they
And
do it again in
Jenkins is a
Parade.
very butlery name, isn't it? It's like that's his personal butler, and he's just whack him for me.
Yeah.
Right.
That's his job, the whacker.
Yeah, he's just stood there quietly,
Yeah.
and then he's just got his truncheon out ready.
Rick does such a great reaction both times. To when he's hit by the copper and then when he's hit by the criminal later on, he does that kind of throws his arms up in the air.
His hair flays everywhere. And when Eddie gets hit, he has the delay reaction, which another cartoony thing.
Yeah.
It's like Wile E. Coyote not noticing gravity for a little
Yeah.
while before
Yeah.
he falls.
It's like too stupid somehow to realise he's been hit or something.
Yeah.
isn't
Yeah.
it? His brain hasn't caught up with what's happened.
His brain is so shielded and cushioned by alcohol that the kinetic energy takes a while to get through his skull to his brain to actually knock him out.
Now, I want to say, my memory of this episode, I always felt like the police arrived about halfway through. They arrived right at the end. It's like
Yeah.
3 minutes left of the episode.
Goes very quickly this episode, I thought, when I was watching it.
And see them woken up.
Like,
First and maybe only appearance of Eddie's pants.
thankfully.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I never thought about that.
And-
But yeah,
Why
Rick gets
thankfully?
down
What
to
do
his
you mean?
underwear a few times.
Because I don't really want to see their underwear that much because
Well, we
it's
see
disgustingly
we see
yellow.
Richie's
Richie's enormous bulge in his
It's
pants.
the fact they're
got a huge
both wearing
bulge
the
in this one.
same thing
It looks
as well.
like he's almost got a hard on in this. It's a
Oh,
weird,
he's stuffed some
odd.
stuff down
Yeah,
there.
I think what it is a cricket box for the stunt that's coming up. They obviously need something.
Yeah, there's some packing going on
Yeah.
probably for that. But no, I think Rick's put an extra couple of hairs of whatever down his trousers.
Richie has very hairy legs compared to Eddie's very smooth ones as well.
Already, Eddie's going bald. So.
Yes. But Richie hasn't drawn on the fake hairs on his legs with biro.
Oh, continuity error.
Wasn't trying to impress anyone. Yeah, it's a great reveal of the empty flat
Yeah,
as
they've
well,
taken
isn't
the
it?
carpet.
Yeah,
of everything.
everything
Yeah.
is bare.
Taking them for literally all they had.
Yeah.
Taking their clothes away,
Yeah.
apart from as much as they could, and they're both wearing the exact same outfit.
Yeah.
They're
But
both
didn't murder
pants and
them
vest.
horribly,
Yeah.
interestingly. So they're
No,
not.
because they're not murderers.
Well, that's it. Like their fantasy, well, not fantasy, but their imagining of that they're
Yeah.
going to skin us alive and bugger
Yeah.
us doesn't happen.
Left them with the piece of rope that they didn't find themselves to tie up the burglar with.
Mousetraps. Think they were already there in the flat?
Maybe.
Or something they would have had in their
Almost
torture device
certainly. Richie and
bag.
Eddie have mice, don't they?
And I like the fact that the burglars correctly guessed that they both really like Sue Carpenter.
Yeah.
Just the mention of her,
Yeah.
the name.
Not a picture,
wonder-
just the name.
I wonder whether they found something while they were
Maybe.
trawling through, like Richie's little secret love nest or something in his study.
They opened his wallet, found one of his secret love pictures, one of his
Moody love
collages.
picture, yeah. You guys obviously would have got this joke when you were even 8 or whatever. The hard on idea.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that I got that
Okay.
when I first watched it.
Right.
When I first watched it. But actually I think that is sort of what maybe taught me
Yeah.
what happens when people get aroused, isn't it? Yeah. So interesting.
It's such a great gag to end on, and then their painful looking faces is such a great freeze frame.
Yeah.
That'd be a good picture, actually, those two next to each other. A
The
nice two-shot of them.
screams are very genuine, aren't they?
So for you guys, what would you say your high points of the episode are?
The conversation between Eddie and Richie when the burglar first comes in,
Yeah.
I think all of that is absolutely brilliant piece of writing, and the drawing room, colouring in room, all of that, it builds quite nicely. So that sort of little set piece of dialogue, I think, about the burglars and the skinning them alive. I mean, my favourite line, if you have to do it, is the, do you want to be skinned alive and buggered?
Yeah.
I'd like to see you try.
Yeah.
I think that's great.
Yeah, again, why is he expecting people to be violently sexual?
Well, that's it.
Burglars,
It's like
skinned
that's
alive and buggered.
he's so sort of like sexually starved, aren't they? Like that's what it goes to, maybe, or maybe they've been watching too many odd late night films or something. But it's just, I feel like almost they wrote that first,
Yeah.
Okay.
maybe, and then went back from that line.
For me, the pencil is a really standout moment, and the being dragged up the stairs, the whole thing, the balls hang low thing. That's something
Yeah.
all kids
Mm-hmm.
repeated.
I think for me, it's that moment that Eddie puts his arms to either side and then just flops down completely through the conservatory.
Face plants.
Yeah, and the noises Richie makes when the police are at the door and when he's about to feed the poison to the burglar, that laugh, is amazing.
That's like an impression of Richie, of Rick Mao, is it? That laugh is what a lot of people would
Yeah,
do if you would do a Rick Mao impression.
I think also it's obvious, but the yellow one, it's a very obvious little bit of gag, isn't it?
Yeah.
But again, Eddie's very stupid in this episode, isn't he? And because he's drunk, but I think Eddie's particularly stupid in this one to
I
make
wish
it be
I understood that.
the
is from
dumber
this,
and
isn't it?
dumber,
Yeah.
like that idea of one's much stupider.
Yeah.
And then he actually says, "You're stupider than I
Yes.
am." Yeah.
Their idea of living the high life, rich and wealthy, is living in grass skirts in a tropical paradise thing. Kind of a cool look forward to Hooligan's Island, maybe.
Yeah, and it becomes a bit of a repetition as well in Sad Ken as well, doesn't it? It's like that birds, booze, budgerigars and all that. They sort of talk about small sums of money sort of buying them this life in paradise.
Yeah, what a weekend in paradise, if anything.
It's what Eddie thinks he's going to get in the first Bottom live show, isn't it? From entering the competition.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah. So anything you guys didn't particularly enjoy?
Well, yeah, so I guess the slight racist bit, that's,
Yes.
maybe shouldn't really have been there. Who knows?
If it got edited out now, though, would we be up in arms like a lot of people are about the...
I'm surprised they didn't
Apocalypse.
try and drown it out like they did in Thieving Bastard Yobbos. Drown it out with some kind of sound effect.
But that's what's interesting, isn't it? Because they obviously don't... And there's a few times where there's a little bit of, slightly dodgy sort of territory. But I suppose it's a tricky one, isn't it? Because it is quoting a belief that would have happened many years earlier. It's not great, but it's not something that stops me enjoying this episode particularly.
Any particular sound effects that you guys like? I will say I really like the noise as the as the copper walks on the vomit.
Sliding it, it's a weird one. Obviously, the nose pencil sound.
Yeah.
I don't have any specific ones in this episode. It doesn't feel like the strongest episode of the series, as you guys said earlier.
One had to be weak.
You can see why it's in the middle, can't you? If you've got a band, the set list sort of they do a couple of strong ones and then they sort of take it down a bit.
There has to be a couple of fillers in the middle.
But weirdly, this is the Farce episode, isn't it, really?
It's the weakest in terms of gags per minute, or laughs per minute, I suppose. But one of the things I love most about it is how willing Rick and Aid were to go so completely dark with the characters and with the story in a primetime BBC sitcom. in the same slot that people would be watching Open All Hours and Keeping Up Appearances, that you've got two characters who are just total fucking psychopaths.
And you're with it, and it's so silly as well at other points as well. It really does have a strange balance as you go through it with these like mad little jokes and then like murder.
Okay, so time for a quiz. This week I'm Quizmaster. Matt and Angela, have you selected your fart noises?
I have. I'm going to go for quick fart.
And I'm going to go for two-tone fart.
Okay, all right, question 1. Whose mousetrap goes off first?
Richie's.
I'm afraid that's the wrong answer.
Ooh.
Did you know?
Well, I can't say that I noticed, no. So, but it's Eddie.
Yeah.
By process of elimination.
Yeah. Do I have to give you the point now?
No, I think we just neither of us got a point.
Okay, all right. I'm going to ask you this knowing you probably went into such minute detail of watching it that you'll know this anyway. But when the policeman enters, Eddie is reading a newspaper. What is the headline of the newspaper where Eddie is reading upside down?
No, didn't get it.
Angela.
I did look at this, but no, I'm not looking at my notes. I can't remember what it is, but it is something about Kempton. Loves...
If you can give
something reward.
I'm going to give you the point.
Yeah, give her a point.
Yeah,
it's
the exact headline is Kempton's pursuit of love's reward. So I will give you the point there. That's correct.
Most of the words were there.
Pursuit of. How many miles
Kempton,
away
has
from...
Kempton been mentioned before?
How many miles away from Hammersmith is Kempton?
I think it's 13 and a half, I think. Question number 3. On the newspaper, what odds are prominently displayed?
Don't know.
26 to 1.
I'm sorry, it's actually 62 to 1. I think you read it upside down.
Sorry, my eyes are the right way up.
All right, here we go. Question 4. Tip Tipping played the PC referred to as Jenkins, but what was his character credited as in the end credits?
Okay, so it's Mr. Kelly.
Is the right answer.
How many have I got so far?
But
None.
I don't think he plays the police officer.
Okay, but...
That's what he was credited as.
Yeah, I just think that police officer is not credited.
Okay.
Anyway.
Question number 5. What establishment now seems to be opposite the flat instead of a tandoori?
It's a fish and chip bar.
Is the right answer, which is funny because...
Why did they go to the Neptune's pantry?
Yeah.
Maybe it's full of, I don't know, goldfish that have been murdered horribly rather than proper fish.
So that's a third point for Angela.
All you can see is fish.
You can only see the word fish. I assume it's followed by chips, but you can see the word fish.
Weirdly, why is the tandoori gone?
Presumably, it was being
Health
used.
Inspector.
Presumably the tandoori sign was being used on another set on another sitcom somewhere. Question number 6. In the kitchen, a box of what breakfast cereal is partially visible behind a brown towel?
Oh, you first.
Angela pipped that.
Cornflakes. Kellogg's cornflakes.
Is the right answer.
Yeah, that's what I was going to guess.
All right, next question. Paul Bradley plays Mr. Scrubs. He also starred in Holby as Dr. Elliot Hope. Which actor, who appeared in more than one episode of Bottom, played the Holby character Percy Abra-Durant? Matt.
It's Mr. Harrison.
Is it?
No. I don't know. Is it Mr. Harrison?
What, the actor Mr. Harrison?
The person who played Mr. Harrison.
Is not correct, I'm afraid.
No. Okay.
I've never watched Holby City, and I'm proud of that. So I'm just going to guess because they appeared in Bottom more than once.
Yeah.
Was that what was in the question?
Yeah.
Aid Edmondson.
Is the right answer.
Oh my God! Amazing. That was a trick little question.
Was.
You're making it sound like it was someone who...
Yeah.
That was a good question.
Do I get that point then?
You do get the point, yeah. Okay.
I'm doing so badly.
I'm afraid, yes. So far, Matt, you don't have a point. No. But maybe you might pull it out of the bag on this one. Okay. When did Richie and Eddie have the old fish fingers? Matt has pipped it there.
Was last Thursday.
Is the right answer.
But it was just Eddie, wasn't it?
Well, okay. Well, yeah. When were the fish fingers had? Okay. Question number 9. Based on the amount of money he spent and the cost per bottle, how many bottles of Old Spice must Eddie have drunk? Angela, you were first there.
So you're rounding out my head and
8. I'm afraid that's incorrect. It would not be 8. Matt, do you want to come in here?
Yeah. Okay. So it would be.
Hang on. How's he got thinking time?
I'm going to have to press you for this. I'm afraid.
7. It's 7.
Is the right answer.
So 25p each.
Okay. Is the right answer.
Okay.
If he spent it all on Old Spice.
Yeah.
Question 10. Which of the following cities are not mentioned during this episode? Leicester, Sheffield, Nottingham, Chesterfield.
Not.
Hang on, Angela. I think
Nottingham
is the right answer.
I didn't even buzz in and try to say the answer.
That's the conclusion.
I'm doing really bad.
Let me just let me just check the scores here to see who won. I think 2, 4, 6. With 6-2, Angela wins. Well played, Angela. I can give you guys the bonus question if you want.
Yeah, go on.
Yeah.
For
Okay.
shits and giggles.
What term for police does Richie not use? Is it rozzers, pigs, filth, narcs?
Roses.
Correct.
Yeah, it's Ross's.
Shouldn't have done that one first, really, should I? Should I left it to last?
Yeah.
All right, well, there you go. Angela wins the quiz. Well done, Angela. And
That was very good this week, Paul. That was
Oh,
actually
did you like it?
on topic.
And with that,
You
I
can
think...
still pull this back, Matt. We're three episodes in.
Right, so have you guys got any things to add to this episode? We'd love to hear from you. We've got Facebook, Twitter, Instagram accounts, all under @TalkingBottom. And you can email us on 11mafekingparade@gmail.com. Mentioned in this episode, 11 Mafeking Parade. You should all know it.
The next episode is Parade, and I'll be in charge of the quiz.
Sure.
Excellent.
It's the episode with the highest cast.
Yeah, a lot of guest stars in it.
Mm-hmm.
See you next week.
Bye, cunts.